Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us for today's webinar on social engineering. To introduce SSL 24/7, for those of you who are new to us, we are a team of security consultants working to keep your business safe, secure, and moving forward. We have over 14 years of experience operating across 18 markets and have developed a range of products and services that we call our online business continuity. Our team of certified experts offer internal, external, and application penetration tests, as well as incident response services, red team services, connected device security solutions, vulnerability assessment services with Qualys, and of course, social engineering testing. Our social engineering testing covers the retrieval of information from public sources, targeted phone calls, spear phishing scenarios, and also physical penetration attempts. But I will leave this up to Loic to get into and introduced to you. So if you have any questions throughout the presentation, please type and send them through the questions section of the webinar control panel, and we'll get to these at the end of our webinar. So now I'd like to present to you Loic Castel, our lead certified penetration tester from SSL 24/7.
Thank you, Wesley. Hi. So thank you for joining the webinar, now can begin with the presentation. So for your information, it will last 20 minutes, and then we will have a little bit of time to answer your questions. So you can type in your question through the GoToWebinar menu. So just to present you what we go through in this webinar. First, we start with presenting what's social engineering in the informatic context. We also try to state which types of social engineering exist and also how to recognize them in order to fight them back. A little bit of facts and figures just to show you how important social engineering is in our today's world. And of course, what is interesting is for us to give you some feedback on actual phishing simulation, physical intrusion simulation, open source intelligence gathering data, just to show you, to give you some examples what we did find, and that could be interesting. And also, finally, we give you some advices in order to respond to this threat, which is now, I think, and I'm pretty sure of that, it is not affecting all of us, all companies, and also affecting all of us on a personal level, since social engineering and phishing attempts targets person on personal and professional way. So let's start by defining what's social engineering. So social engineering, is the act of manipulating people in order to get them to give the attacker sensitive data, or to make them do things for the attacker. For instance, execute a piece of malware on the machine in order to get an attacker internal access to the network. It was popularized by Kevin Mitnick in the 90s. He actually wrote a really good book, which you must read. It's called The Art of Deception. It's now a reference in the field. And as for people that do not know, Kevin Mitnick is an actual well-known hacker that he was really famous in the 90s. Was one of the pioneers in his field. And social engineering was always an important part of his acts. Was not just a technical guy. He was also really good social engineer. And it allowed him to obtain information he needed to proceed with actual acts. A good example, I would just go into history, but it's actually a good example of what social engineering is. It got NEC, a Japanese company, to obtain him an FTP access in order to obtain the source code of a new phone. How did he do that? He first called the Japanese part of NEC, which is responsible for mobile building, mobile device building, and asked them to give them the source code through an FTP access. They didn't want that because it was not an insider. So he got the US subsidiaries of NEC to open him an FTP account, to give him credentials, and then called back the Japanese just to have them, okay, you can now send the source code to a NEC subsidiary, so an insider, on this FTP access. They send the source code, and then it connects to the FTP access and grab the source code. So just by using his phone and using the fact that he knew the name of the name used internally, the lingo, the internal project names, he was able to obtain something really sensitive just by using social engineering. Now back to 2018, it is now wide and publicized field. If we're talking about facts, figures, and statistics, just in the US, for instance, in a year, phishing attempts cost $500 million loss, which is massive amounts of money just by phishing. So we're not accounting phone phishing or social network phishing or physical intrusion. Just email phishing costs $500 million in the US. So in the world, it's something 10 times that. 300 billion emails sent a day, 90% are spam or phishing attempts. In 2014, 40 million people reported phishing attacks. It is now around 100 million in 2018. And every company surveyed, almost every company surveyed, did mention that phishing had an impact on them or on their employee, and it's affecting them. Just for the statistics, 26% of phishing attempts use fake bills, which is the most preferred method, mostly targeting personal users, not companies. And the most requested, the most searched information is Apple ID, so Apple credentials to connect to iCloud. So, what's social engineering in today's society? So I will try to present you each type of social engineering method and scenario, and then we go a bit deeper into each scenario and give you some real life examples of each of them. So telephone manipulation is also called phone phishing or phishing, voice phishing. Is the art of getting someone to give you information or do something on his computer just by using phone call. There's actually contests in the DEF CON. DEF CON is one of the bigger security conferences in the world, and they do it in the social engineering village. They do phone phishing competition when they are isolated in some kind of glass cage, and the goal is to gather as much as possible information on one company, and the participant that has gathered most information wins that. There is also physical intrusion. So physical intrusion is the art of getting into the premises just by luring employees to let the attacker in. Manipulation by email, which is the most popular one. It's called phishing, so you've probably all heard about that. Manipulation of social networks is just one of an extension of phishing using the social networks. Just for information, social networks are a zero trust environment. People let their guard down when they use social networks, when they use Facebook, when they use LinkedIn, when they use Twitter. They just don't think or think less about security, and they are then it's easier to manipulate them. And finally, one of an important scenario which is often not so widely known is OSINT. OSINT is open source intelligence. It's a search for public information on the internet, and it's always the first step an attacker or social engineer would start with. And this information can be gathered through public information, so search engines, technical DNS, with, and also more and more on the dark web when they can either gather information for free or by paying to obtain information. So I will try to go about each scenario one by one. OSINT, I will start with OSINT. So information you are to protect when you are handling when you are managing the security of a company is maybe already available online. So some persons are looking for public information on the web in order to upgrade their attack attempts. So remember Kevin Mitnick when he wanted to have the source code, he needed multiple steps to obtain what he wanted. It's exactly the same for many things as for social engineering. You gather information in each of these four scenarios, and you can reuse it in other scenarios as well. So you gather names on LinkedIn that you use on phone phishing just to make you look like a real employee, and by phone phishing, you make someone clicking on the link that would execute something on the computer. So everything can be connected and can be used by attackers to obtain more information. Okay, phone phishing. Phone phishing, the fact to obtain information or make someone do stuff for you from the phone, on the phone. So attackers or social engineers use pretext. They use lingo, real name to get what they need. The most widely known threat is, you already probably know about that, is the president scam. So president scams appeals to target emotions, mainly fear, to put pressure or an accountant or someone able to do money transfer, and the attacker usurps the CEO identity and make them believe they are the CEO or the director of the company, and ask the accountant to do money transfer on another account, just saying, okay, we do not have many times, be really discreet about that, and please make the phone transfer, make the money transfer. And it costs many companies an important, huge amount of money in total. Now let's move on to phishing via email or social networks. Two types mainly of phishing that I use. The first one is waterholing. So waterholing in the company context is to create a company well-used website. So for instance, a webmail, an HR application, some applications that is used every day by every employee of the company. So the attacker makes an exact replica of that website and then send them an email stating that, okay, they use a pretext to make them click on the link, which is directing the user to the fake website, which is exactly the same. They even use SSL certificate to appear real. And when the consultant type is real passwords, real username password, the attackers store that in the database and redirect the user to the real one, to the real website, so the user just don't know that he has been phished. Sometimes credentials can be really could be an entry point for an attacker, because if it's Active Directory credentials, which is often the case, for instance, on the webmail, on the Outlook Web Access, to use Active Directory credentials, it can then be used by an attacker to be his first entry point on the company's network. There is also spear phishing. Spear phishing is more advanced. It relies on the fact of sending attachments which can sometimes be ransomware executable that would be then executed on the employee's machine. Okay, and last, intrusion, physical intrusion, which is the art of trying to find physical vulnerabilities into a building, but also try to find people that would allow an attacker to get in. So the receptionist, people being on break, and use pretext, being, for instance, asked to do delivery to get in the premises. So what happens after each scenario? So public information, always what generally when we do simulation, what we can find is source code. We often find source code. We often find API key that could let us use the specific service. We find lots of passwords from data leaks, mainly passwords that can sometimes be still valid and used for next phase. Phone phishing. So the risk is mainly for someone to give away the password, which can then be used for later attack. Phishing via email there is mainly two risks: the risk of getting someone to give his password, like I explained for Waterlink, and also give an attacker access to the internal network. So the employee click on the link, execute something on their machine that creates a tunnel between the attacker infrastructure and the internal network, and then the attacker can access the internal network like he was physically, like he's physically plugged in on the network. This is the real. This is how sophisticated attacks begins mainly, and this is really the worst case scenario. And physical intrusion, of course, the risks are document theft, data theft, take control of someone's computer, or breaching the data center. So, real last case. When we do phishing simulation at SSL 24/7, we try to recreate realistic scenarios, and we obtain a really high success rate of 75%. We're only accounting people actually opening the email. So people that receive the email but do not open it, maybe because they are on break, are not accounted in that. But still, it's 75% success rate. So people are getting phished, and when using known web applications they know, their guard is lowered, and they always click and give their credentials. Spear phishing success rate is a little bit less. I think we are more about 40% because of the fact that it gets blocked a lot. If it contains a link, or if it contains an attachment, it can get blocked by engines, by antivirus or IDS. Physical intrusion over one half of our intrusion are successful, but what it's not said in the slide is that when we do intrusion simulation, we often try 3 to 4 scenarios. So it never happens that when we did simulation, nobody were able to break it. This never happened. Always one scenario succeeded, and it's always possible to find someone able to open the door and let the attacker in. One interesting fact is that the most simple scenario is often the most successful one. So just following someone entering the company in the morning is just by looking exactly dressed as many companies just to get in the crowd is enough get in. Open source intelligence, we often find really interesting data, and mainly from data leaks, passwords, and passwords are valid, and we are able to use that to connect to actual applications and then get further into the network. So how to respond to this threat? Mainly increase employees' awareness. So why is social engineering still working? It's because of human psychology. We can't help it. Even if deep down we feel there is a risk, we still click on a link, we still give the information, because under pressure, people under fatigue, people are gonna give the information. Some people will raise the flag and say, okay, there have been a phishing attempt, and the threat could be stopped. But just one people is enough to get inside the company. So recognize the TTP, the technique, the procedures used by the attackers in order to so train your employee to recognize that, and use simulations just to give them example. And when you do simulation, you can even use the fact that at the end of simulation, if the people was, for instance, phished, you can write an educational message saying, okay, you were phished during that, and you gave your real credentials. Next time you can do that, recognize the fact that it was a phishing email because it was using this link and this scenario. And this is the only way to respond well to social engineering. Of course, there is technical means, so you can always harden the security of your mail gateway to have less spam and then less phishing attempts, for instance. Harden computing assets, use security equipment, so IPS. If we're talking about the ransomwares, always do backups, of course. If your company is targeted by a ransomware and it actually encrypts some important data, critical data, if you have backup, it will help. And never pay the ransom also, which is, I think, good advice, because it's never going somewhere. And that's it. So we welcome your questions. You can write it in the GoToMeeting. Okay. If you have a question, you can write it down, and I will try to answer it. Forward it. And of course, thank you for your participation, and thank you for your attendance.